Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Retrospective Cinema, a podcast wherein we'll endeavor week after week to see the full filmographies of chosen directors. We'll interpret, critique, and discuss. I'm your co-host, Ryan Saylor.
And I am your other co-host, Annie Morell. For our first filmography deep dive, we have chosen Scottish director Lynne Ramsay, who you may recognize from films like We Need to Talk About Kevin and You Were Never Really Here.
But today we'll be starting with her debut film, which she both wrote and directed. This is a film called Ratcatcher. Here's a clip.
Darling, come here. Don't be touching it. Darling, don't be touching it. No, give me a hand. Come here, darling, don't, please. Can't touch you, they're vermin.
Actions speak for themselves.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with her work prior to this and what you've experienced so far?
Yeah, I actually really supported Lynne Ramsay as our first choice because I have never seen any of her work prior to watching it for this podcast. So I was going in completely blind, like really not knowing any hallmarks of her style. So I was excited to explore a director I've not really seen any of, and a female director as well.
Yeah, so in college, I remember there was actually a moment where We Need to Talk About Kevin was trending. It became something of a talk piece. You know, this film's on Netflix. You should see it. So I watched that in my budding cinephile days, looking for edgy cinema stuff by Gaspar Noé, Lars von Trier. But other than that, and I think a viewing of You Were Never Really Here, I really saw those when I wouldn't have appreciated them for all they had. So I was excited to dive back in from the top. So we both started with her short films. What'd you get out of that?
I think she has a really clear style, this kind of almost home movie patina in all three of them, particularly in her very first, which I believe was her kind of like college thesis film, Small Deaths, and just definitely this kind of autobiographical like tilt to her work. I think there's a lot of like focus on just like natural soundscapes, some like definite like color palette preferences, a lot of reds, hues of red in kind of an otherwise drab color palette, and just very kind of day in the life style was what I got from those films, even though they kind of jump around in time. What were your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think what was immediately striking about her short films, and I can see why people kind of immediately thought she was someone to watch. She simultaneously is working in a mode that traditionally is more destructive, more edgy due to her subject matter. I mean, if we talk about Small Deaths, there's some pretty blatant cruelty very, very early in her career. But she also is filming in such a way that's reminiscent of more meditative directors and a more kind of dreamlike style. So it's an interesting combination. A little history. I don't know how into it you got, but she apparently was going for photography when she was in college, and then happened upon that short film Meshes in the Afternoon. Have you ever seen it?
No.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's a surrealist short film, super famous. But she saw Meshes in the Afternoon, which is only 20 minutes or whatever, and decided to be a filmmaker. And so she makes she goes to film school, and yeah, for her thesis, like you were saying, makes this film. Someone buys it, submits it to Cannes, and she ends up getting an award there, and I guess from there it's history. I think of her three short films, that one actually is the one that appealed to me the most. I thought the idea of taking a life and talking about loss of innocence, but not with any grand scale things. Like we often see You know, huge moments of cruelty in that type of story, but here it's, you know, her dad wasn't there, or this character's dad, but it seems autobiographical, and I guess we can talk about that too. Dad wasn't there when she wanted to play one time, or she saw kids being cruel to a dead animal or dying animal, friends playing a prank, but we see, you know, how these moments add up to someone dying a little. So what do you think of the shorts? Which one was your favorite, you know, and why?
I think Small Deaths spoke to me the most. I think it's kind of the most universal, just that idea of encountering tragedy for the first time in childhood, or like cruelty for the first time in childhood, and then how that kind of builds up throughout life. Yeah, I liked the kind of build up of like smallest death was just her dad leaving and not caring about his family for the day, you know.
Just for the day.
Just for the day, but like as a child, you know, a day is a much longer span of time, so that does feel like a real crime in a way, to the actual cruelty of torturing a dying animal, and then leading to this like young adult moment of her having this terrible prank pulled on her by clearly like a shitty boyfriend. Yeah, I appreciated that kind of, those juxtapositions of those three moments, and having like the title cards like very distinctly differentiate those moments. I think Gasman I think was the most affecting of them. I mean, I think it has the most dialogue, it has the most like clear plot points of the three films, which it's not the longest. Kill the Day was longer, I believe. But that one, yeah, what affected me the most, I think, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because the audacity of this man to just bring his main family to his second family,
right,
ostensibly,
yeah,
and then bring all of the kids together and not offer any sort of explanation to his main family as to what, you know, to his daughter, who is saying like, why is she calling you dad? Yeah, I think, I don't know, I didn't really look into Lynne Ramsay's actual biography at all, and to me it does seem clear that there are some daddy issues themes around all of, you know, a lot of these films, the short films and Ratcatcher, certainly, which I know we'll get to later.
I'm really glad we watched the shorts. I was kind of hesitant to make that, you know, do we just watch the features? This is already quite an endeavor. But actually seeing, you know, where she really started, I thought it was pretty beautiful. I guess I should give the disclaimer that I like Small Deaths as long as that cow wasn't actually killed. But I assume, you know, it'd be hypocritical to make a film about how horrible this is and then to do the same thing to the cow. So I assume that wasn't real. But I couldn't find anything online.
And especially in a like collegiate setting, I assume, you know, that animal cruelty was not allowed.
Although, I mean, we're gonna there's some stuff in Ratcatcher that I don't think they could have filmed without some some stuff that you wouldn't get away with now, I guess. But you know, I don't know how much we do or don't want to talk about that. But on Small Deaths, I think the reason that scene with the cow affected me so much is that I actually have a distinct memory in my life that I think I'd kind of put away, and then this film brought it back. I was with some friends of friends as like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old maybe, and this bird was dying, and this idiot kid tried to, I guess, put the bird out of its misery by snapping its neck. but failed. And so I actually could still vividly picture him repeatedly attempting to do this. And I think I did die a little inside. So I was like, wow, me and Lynne Ramsay were both seeing kids hurt animals and never returning from it.
You two grew up in a small town in Glasgow.
The similarities had to end somewhere. Oh my gosh, I've never had to put on subtitles for a film in English. I don't know if you.
Oh, yes. After watching Small Deaths, and I think there was, just a handful of lines of dialogue, and I couldn't decipher them, so I just knew this had to be. Yeah, I prefer to not watch, or to watch without subtitles when things are in English, because I find my eye is drawn to the text a lot more, and I miss a lot of the visual nuance. But it was I would have missed all of the vocal nuance.
Yeah,
Had I not put on subtitles.
I started Small Deaths, made it a couple minutes in, and I was like, wow, I guess my settings must have messed up. I'm not sure why Criterion Channel isn't playing the subtitles. I actually thought we were in a foreign language, and then I put on the subtitles. I'm like, oh, this is English. I just could not tell. Ratcatcher has been professionally subtitled, but it seems like the short films were just subtitled by someone at some point. And sometimes it just says parentheses unintelligible. And I'm like, well, I agree, but maybe you should have figured this out. But yeah, that's again.
But also that is kind of the Scottish dialect,
Sure. Yeah, it's intense.
Dialect.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't want to stay on her shorts for too long, but my big takeaway was just, okay, like Lynne Ramsay's very interested in kids specifically, how they experience sadness, how they experience just the world and interpret that. And it prepared me for what she'd be doing in Ratcatcher. And I think they worked very well together. Ratcatcher feels like the fourth work of these shorts.
Oh, definitely. I agree. There are literally locations in Ratcatcher that were the same filming locations as some of the short films. Actors that bled over, and then definitely motifs that bled over into Ratcatcher. So it does feel like a culmination of her short film work into her first feature film, which I think was really cool. Yeah, I'm very glad that it felt like a nice primer for Ratcatcher to watch the short films beforehand.
Yeah. So Ratcatcher, I guess we'll just start with, what was your experience with the film? Did you like it? I don't know if that's even the right word for something like this, but obviously it's stood the test of time. 25 years later, it's becoming something of a classic, and Lynne Ramsay's gone on to have a pretty important career, enough that we're talking about her right here on this very important podcast. So yeah, what'd you think of the work?
I think in general I am not a huge fan of this kind of quiet slice of life. Quiet, obviously not in content necessarily, because I think there are a lot of really like shocking things that happen within the film, and obviously very like a lot of traumatic events happen within
Sure.
the film. But yeah, I'm not usually drawn to these very like dialogue light, quiet films, and I'm not usually drawn to like films that focus on children either. But I felt like I appreciated. Yeah, I think it's objectively like a well-made film. I think it captures that moment in time well, what little I know about it, and I think it's effective, But did I like it? Do I crave more Lynne Ramsay? Like, unfortunately, no. But I don't think that's her fault as an artist. I think it's just like a taste preference more than anything else. What were your overall thoughts? Did you like the film?
Yeah, I am historically drawn to things like this. I like really challenging film. I still have, Breaking the Waves in my top 4 on Letterboxd. And yeah, my most recent 10 out of 10 was The Florida Project, which I think is in the spirit of this film, certainly. Yeah, I was almost, and I this definitely could just be me, but I was taken aback by some of the level of cruelty that the film got into. I struggled with the rape gang, I think, in particular.
Oh my gosh.
Just this group of boys that runs around doing that repeatedly to our deuteragonist of the film. And yeah, I did wonder a little bit what it all amounts to, but I'm excited to process through with you, and maybe we'll get to the bottom of it. I think I was immediately drawn in. I think the opening is brilliant. Follows this character that is not our lead, and will soon die. If it's not clear, full spoilers in in this discussion. But you get this really striking opening where a boy is playing in a old see-through-ish curtain. He's twisting around, and it looks almost in slow motion like he's suffocating, but he's having fun. He's laughing, and then his mom enters the frame and strikes him, and the scene kind of snaps back to reality, so to speak. And then he goes downstairs and ultimately drowns in this river. But I think that opening shot really encapsulated just kind of the whole film. You see these kids looking like they're having fun a lot of the time, but what they're doing is killing them, sometimes literally physically killing them. We see a lot of the disease-ridden area and the rat infestation that the title partially refers to, but also figuratively, we see in the spirit of those short films these characters slowly but surely dying inside due to the horror they're seeing. So yeah, I loved the opening, was drawn in immediately, but that as the film continued to be relentlessly cruel until its final moments, even I think I lost a little steam myself.
Yeah, I think I also loved the opening shot of the boy wrapped around in the curtain. I'm a sucker for any, whether it was intentional or not. I feel like it probably was, but any visual reference to a piece of art, and to me that really evoked. There's a painting by Renee Magritte. It's also the cover of a Punch Brothers album called The Lovers, where it's these two figures with their heads, kind of under sheets, and it does have that kind of dark undertone of, are they suffocating? And I do think that is a brilliant way to open the film. This kind of implication of possible violence or cruelty. I mean, I think that's much of the, it's these much of the film is moments of cruelty, but children who don't understand the level of cruelty that is happening, or the level of cruelty that they are inflicting themselves. But I definitely got worn down throughout. I mean, it is one of those movies that I think is very, as I said, effective in its message, but unfortunately the message is really kind of sad. And
yeah, I guess, well, what would you say what would you say is the message? Because it's, is it a cry for people to get in there and do something about it, or kids keep dying, or what'd you take away from it?
I do think to me it's a message to parents, to kind of, there are all sorts of kind of pedagogies of parenting out there. There's the like free range children parenting, which I felt like was kind of how the kids were being parented for the most part within the film. And there's the other end of the spectrum, which is like helicopter parenting, and so to me what I got from it was you need to like educate your children so that they don't go, if they, the point of being a parent to me is to be a guide for your child to navigate the world. And I think without some sort of like moral guide, you do end up with kind of atrocities happening, or being perpetrated by kids, because they don't know any better, and because they haven't been told like, hey, that's wrong. So that honestly was mostly what I got from the film. I want to hear more from you on. You kind of said it was a little maybe murky, what the messaging even was, and I do kind of agree that some of the violence did feel a little like, well, what is the point here of this particular instance?
Yeah, so to my understanding, this is something more or less that the director experienced. She did grow up 70s in Glasgow, and yeah, we were talking before recording, but news to me, this trash strike, the trash piling up across the city, bringing animals, was real, and finally, yeah, the British government did get involved and have to clear it all out, as happens at the end of this film. So there is a certain element of when you watch, I don't know, Saving Private Ryan, for example, no one's gonna say that film's too violent because it's history. So I wonder if we're in that wheelhouse a bit. This kind of violence was happening, so maybe we should just document it. But I genuinely don't know. I don't know if that if it was heightened for the film, or if this level of kids hurting kids was happening at the time. But as it stands, yeah, I think the film is just working in the empathy machine kind of world, trying to make its audience care about kids that maybe if we were to see on the street we'd think less of, or not feel sympathy for. But seeing, because you see even our lead, I mean, it opens with our lead murdering essentially, I guess manslaughter, it's an accident. Our protagonist isn't any kind of angel, but you feel for him, so I wonder if maybe the film was simply trying to make its audience care about people that you might not otherwise. But yeah, ultimately I'm not sure. And a very literal reading of the film does simply say that there was no hope for this kid, and he ultimately dies at the end. But and that's where I think I struggled, is that there didn't seem to be any hope. Even in something like The Florida Project, things are very bad for the kids in that movie. But you can, they still have each other. And I guess that, our two leads do have each other here. But
I think the bath scene is a great example of that. The kind of glimpses of hope or any sort of happiness for these kids, when they're bathing each other because they both have lice.
Yeah.
So still kind of depressing in a way, but they're laughing, they're splashing around, they're having a good time, and that's pretty much the only good time that is had, arguably. in the whole film that doesn't have any sort of like that doesn't eventually bend toward tragedy in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kenny's birthday, that scene with his mouse Snowball. Snowball goes to the moon. I did love that entire sequence. I liked the break from the realism of the rest of the film, showing Snowball, going to the moon in kind of their imaginations. But yeah, just awful. That even I think I had trouble with that, where this kid, and maybe it's just the imagination of children and their kind of inability to conceptualize like what death really is, kind of harkening back to Little Deaths. But that this kid was so adamant that like, no, I'm going to protect Snowball. Only my friend I trust can hold him. And then, yeah, I'll attach him to a balloon and he can just fly away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I had trouble with that moment of just, and maybe it's the changeability of children.
Yeah, well, again. Kenny as a character, I think we're meant to see that he's not, fully mentally there. I think he's got some sort of disability. So I think he, I think he genuinely didn't know he was doing anything wrong. I think he's just like, I'll send my mouse to the moon, where there are lots of other mice that also get to hang out on the moon.
And maybe it would solve the rat problem that they have too.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I was watching on the Criterion Channel. They had a special feature that's probably made for the disc. But Lynne Ramsay talking about the film in 2021, so relatively recently. And she was saying that this area that they filmed in, at least for the exteriors, was an abandoned complex. Like it was about to be destroyed. So they had free reign to just kind of, do with whatever they wanted with it. But they didn't need to ship in any rats because it also was infested. Like the locals were like, yeah, no, we have rats. Come on down. So that was in and of itself just like, oh no, conditions have not gotten better.
I think what I appreciated the most about the film's messaging was the kind of juxtaposition of like moral decay with physical decay. Obviously there's a lot of garbage, so that's the decay, that's the physical decay, along with the different moments of like when they find the dead rat and kind of throw it around, and then you see, I think we haven't talked much about his dad yet, and I do want to get into James's father, because he's an absolute piece of shit in this movie. But he has a lot of, you see all different kinds of moral decay with him, just being kind of slovenly and drunk all the time. I mean, at one point he hits his wife, which was just another terrible thing that happened in the movie.
That scene in particular was really interesting to me because it comes at a moment when the film, is at least partially asking the viewer to feel bad for him, and they follow it up with the dance, which was shot very sweetly, romantically. Yeah, I guess I don't have a larger point there, but I thought that was a really interesting choice to have that moment right then.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that I don't think it was. I didn't take the dance following immediately after the moment of domestic abuse as a condoning of those actions, more as just the reality of what it is to be in an abusive relationship. That, yeah, the reason that kind of cycle is perpetuated is because there are usually moments of like reconciliation that make the abused partner feel like, everything's going to be okay now, or like I am loved, I am appreciated. And that was just, that was an anomaly. Yeah, having that, I think that was our kind of main insight into their relationship, the two parents, which I I wasn't 100% sure. It seemed to me all the kids weren't actually related.
I think they were. Yeah, it is unclear, but there's several kids in that building, and I think they're I mean, clearly, so he has the younger sister, the older sister, but I was unclear on whether the others were directly related as well.
Yeah, but even I don't know. I thought, it would be nice to rewatch it and really figure this out, but I thought near the beginning there was kind of a mention of like, oh, well, this is your dad and this is my mom. But maybe I misinterpreted in all the Scottish brogue of it all.
So we can talk about his dad though. What, was there more that you wanted to discuss about how he was as a character?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the public sentiment that he was a hero after, I mean, he did actually save Kenny.
Yeah, that does happen.
It does happen. And I appreciated the award ceremony being this adult man getting an award, and then the rest of the awardees were children. Because to me, like, that man is a child. He is not acting as an adult pretty much at any point in the movie. He's very impulsive, goes to the pub when he wants, naps when he wants, he watches football when he wants, and that's not being a father, in my opinion.
I guess so. I agree with everything you're saying. I do think there was maybe a little more, or at least I interpreted a little more nuance to him. Like I think, and those moments came because he ultimately was trying to better his like living situation for his family. He was, and yeah, I guess that he did save that kid. I don't know. I wonder, maybe I read into it too much, but I thought there's still good in him. that kind of thing.
Interesting. I feel like, especially like juxtaposing this father with father leaving in Small Deaths, and there's parents in Gasman as well, but to me, Lynne Ramsay, again, I see major daddy issues in her work, and I think she's pretty much just lampooning this man.
Fair enough.
And I did want to know your thoughts on the short scene that he had with the cat, and then the men who came in, or I guess young men who came in and beat him up.
Yes. Okay. So that's that. I was thinking that I was missing a moment where I felt for him. Yeah. I mean, I think like a true piece of shit. When this little girl will ask, "Can you hold my cat?" I think you would say, "No, I'm not going to do that." Which obviously holding a cat's a small gesture, and the vast majority of people would probably do that. But yeah, we kind of have a staple in all forms of art that people who are, and it's reality as well. We show people that are cruel as cruel to animals. And yeah, I don't know. That was a moment where he, chooses to do this thing that's, he doesn't think is going to benefit him in any way, and ultimately causes him great pain. And you get that great shot of the blood, cherry sauce, whatever, going down the ice cream cone.
Oh, it's funny because it's, I guess, his save the cat moment. Where normally at the beginning of a film, like if you want to paint someone as a hero, you show them saving the cat or whatever, to signal that they are the hero that you should root for. And so I don't know. I thought that was interesting that it was literally a cat kind of near the end of the film that he does at least attempt to save. Yeah, and at that point I have no sympathy for him. I have sympathy for the cat, of course. But it feels very like even that is in a way kind of this performative, like, oh, maybe I'll get credit for this act of goodwill or act of heroism, like saving Kenny from drowning. I don't know. I was very anti this dad.
No, that's fair. I don't. There's honestly, you're comparing to the short films and everything. You're probably right. Like you're probably closer to what Ramsay was intending for this character. But yeah, I think I read him more as, someone that may have also grown up in this kind of environment and never learned how to be anything. And ultimately is trying, but horribly failing. But yeah, I think I put a little good in him on my end.
Cool. That's good for you.
Question for you, metatextual, and we don't have to get too into it if you don't want to, but I was curious on what your opinion was. Even in the 90s, this film would have been illegal to make in America, with its child nudity in particular. What was your opinion on all that? Was it justifiable within the film? Is it, ultimately endangering these kids to make that scene even if it's innocent?
That is a good question. I definitely clocked that, and it was a bit shocking initially. And as I mentioned before, I think that is one of the more joyous scenes in the film. I guess the dad or the mom dancing scene being another one. But I think in the context of the film, it made sense to me and even advanced her message further of just like, these are kids who are not being supervised. Like, you would not, at this age, this is inappropriate for children to be doing this. I think, she's clearly,
I think that's fair. She's adolescent
girl.
Yes.
And that's too old to be doing that. And then you add as you were saying, the metatextual level of, these are two child actors doing this, and these are children child actors, the lines are very blurred. Children are all about imagination and playing pretend, and they blur those lines often. And so and especially back in the 90s, there was no intimacy coordinator on set. Like there was nothing, there was no
Sure.
like care happening, I'm assuming, for these children. And so yeah, I think to answer your question more succinctly, I think I have mixed feelings about it within the context of the film. I felt that it was a justified scene, but should it have happened at all? Like, probably not. Like, obviously we have rules about that now, and I think those are for the best. Not to delve too much into television, but it does kind of remind me of the moral question again of in Nathan Fielder's show The Rehearsal in the first season. There's a lot of use of child actors, of really, really young child actors, and you see those kind of lines being blurred where they can't tell the difference between pretend and reality. And yeah, so I just wonder, in this, even though it's just one scene, it would be interesting to see what those actors now as adults think about it.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
What were your thoughts?
I actually, so I love that reference. I just watched season 1 of The Rehearsal, and yeah, that finale where I assume, not what they intended originally for the finale, as the pretend daddy, where Nathan has to basically serve as counselor to this family that this kid is trying to regain his life. Yeah, it was fascinating. But within this film, yeah, I struggled. I think I've found where my line is for sure. Obviously I don't mind nudity in film. And when you have like a little kid, like that shot in Superman, maybe the 70s film, nudity doesn't even feel like nudity. But yeah, teenagers, I was like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. And yeah, and ultimately that is also cultural. I'm sure this scene was probably not something that they even discussed as much over in Europe. But although I haven't seen any European film do something like this recently either, so maybe we all are deciding to not do something like this. But yeah, I think it is justifiable within the film. I think it is a good scene. I think the actors do a good job. And it does serve as a light moment, a moment of innocence in the midst of a lot of chaos. But yeah, I do wonder, I guess if the scene were to happen today, easily, we'd use adult actors playing kids, but that would be less effective. Or, we'd have the scene with kids, but we wouldn't shoot it in that way. And I think that could have probably been equally effective. Because the moments you think about are, him playing with her hair, making it stand up, that kind of stuff. And that, could have been done without it. So ultimately, yeah, mixed feelings as well. Is it, morally wrong? No. Could it have been a little, safer for everyone involved? Probably. One moment that we have not talked about at all that I think we have to is this house under construction out in a field, that scene.
Yes.
It serves a couple purposes in the film, but when we first see it, James has gotten on a bus and taken it to the end of the line, and he walks to this house that is a model house, presumably, but it's under construction. There's a non-functioning toilet, non-functioning bathtub, that kind of stuff. But it's in the middle of this field of grain, and there's this beautiful shot where James jumps through a window, and then the camera follows him out there, and it's just otherworldly. He's suddenly, it's just him in this very peaceful world. And ultimately that's where his mind goes, where before he dies, assuming we interpret the ending the same way. We'll talk about that in just a sec, I guess. But yeah, what'd you make of all that? I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. I loved the frame of the window out into the field, that deep contrast of this very industrial gray world inside with this kind of luscious wheat field outside, and the kind of free roam that he has through that field, I think is I probably one of the other few happy moments within the movie. Kind of a little side point, but Lynne Ramsay appears to really love recording people peeing, like the sound of people peeing. It happens a couple of times in this movie, when he's peeing in the non-functional toilet, and then I think his dad pees at some point, or something like that. And then one of the short films also had some very audible peeing, which I just think is kind of a funny little motif.
Sure.
But,
There you go.
I loved that moment. I think there's a nice juxtaposition throughout the whole film of the natural world versus the human constructed world, and how beautiful nature is versus how humanity really tends to mess it up, with the things that we do, the things we build, and the things we discard. And I think that was a nice little nod to that in that moment. I also liked, the entire sequence of, this adult just being like, yeah, kid, get off in the middle of nowhere. Who cares about your welfare? Of course, at this point, not surprising from any of the adults. And then this kind of free roam of this very dangerous construction site space, But he ultimately is fine. He nothing happens to him. The dangers of independent children, but also the kind of beauty of like seeing a child just be totally independent, and yeah, I liked it. I think one of the more memorable like parts of the film for me. And then going back later when he goes back again, and at this point they've like installed the window, so he can't jump through that.
Sure.
Just like window opening into the field, and of course the weather is different. It's like very bleak looking outside at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I was saying interpretation. I guess the only slight, discrepancy would be whether, we do see this last moment, but then it cuts back to James drowning. I assume we both agree that he dies at the end.
Yeah, I think so. I think it makes sense. It's an obvious like bookend of the film, since it starts with Ryan's death. Is the child at the beginning who dies.
Yeah. What'd you think of the ending? But I obviously, it's uncomfortable for yet another kid to die, but what does that color the film for you? For me, it I think it took away any last sense of hope that the film had, which I think was disappointing to me. That I felt, that the film was saying that there wasn't a way out for these kids, and I think that's always what I hope is that all these characters in terrible circumstances, no matter like the film or book or real life even, can find peace, find a way out, and obviously he doesn't find one. So what do you think that says for the film?
I kind of agree with you. I do think it's really hard. I tend to not like bleak movies that also end bleak in some way. I to compare it to another film that I think has a lot of kind of a similar tone, similar themes in some ways. Minari. I thought of Minari a few times during my viewing of Ratcatcher, and that film, that family struggles throughout that entire movie. But it ends on a note of not like everything is definitely going to be okay, but like there's a seed of hope at the end, and that I think was a nice cap to it. And this movie, as you were saying, just ends with like, actually there is no hope for this child, and ostensibly all the kids who are in this kind of situation. And at the same time, I also understand the point of like there is kind of a point of no return sometimes. Like if you as a kid killed another kid, even if it was manslaughter, even if it was an accident, how do you go on and live your life, that kind of heavy burden that clearly like people know about too, because you have near the end the girl saying to him that like, I know you killed Ryan. And so I think it's the realism ending of it. It feels very American realism to me, to be honest, even though it's in Glasgow. Just this kind of Eugene O'Neill, like really just chugging along the tragedy and in more tragedy. But I definitely, I think I agree with you that it took away. I wish that it had been the more hopeful message after the trials and tribulations of.
Yeah, I think I thought that's where they were going. Not even in a like necessarily clean way or anything, but with the government coming in and literally cleaning up all the trash. Not that that's a moment of happiness or any kind of that, but I thought our metaphor was resolving to something of okay, well, we can maybe move on a little bit. But
Clean slate for him.
yeah, something. But we did not experience that.
Even like the kind of clean slate metaphor that we get with the trash is finally being picked up. It's being picked up by scabs. Like it's not a clean ending. Even that, like the work is happening, but not in a happy way, not in a way that is a positive resolution to that strike. And so in a way, I do think it kind of connects to how our protagonist ultimately meets his end, in that, like, it's really not a clean end, even though it appears to be a clean end. And I did have a moment where I thought, like, oh, it's just going to end this kind of amorphous, he's in the water, like Ryan was in the water, but like he's not going to die. He's just it's going to be this kind of contemplative, like, comparison of these two children, and then no, it was again, I think there's like some room for interpretation, but I do believe that he died ultimately, and wow, that's a shame, I guess, would be my final thought on that.
But ultimately, I don't need you to assign a score or anything, but would you recommend the film? Are you excited to see more from her? I guess this feels, obviously it's extremely well crafted, but it is the kind of film I think you can only make once. So I'm curious to see where we go from here.
I think I would recommend it to specific people who like this type of like if like I would recommend it to you, specific people, or just cinephiles. I don't think I would recommend it to just anyone, because I think, as you were saying near the start, it is a very challenging film. It's not giving you anything easily, and I think that speaks again to its level of craft. But that's hard. I don't even think I have a straight answer for that, because, as I said, I don't think I'm not like clamoring to watch it again particularly, but I think it was well made. It does feel like, a feature film of a promising director, or the first feature film of a promising director. What are your thoughts? Would you recommend this film?
I think that's fair. I'm not gonna tell someone that's just getting into movies, oh, you gotta check out Ratcatcher, really scare them off. But I think if you want a piece of cinema history like we're doing, or if you're into realism, there's definitely an argument. Or if you just want to challenge yourself and broaden your horizons, because that's always a good reason, go for it. It is extremely well made. I think I'm gonna give it a positive score as I finally sit down to actually put my thoughts on Letterboxd. But I wouldn't put it in my all-time or anything, but that's okay. And
I think it definitely gets a positive score from me as well. And we'll see how I feel when I log it myself on Letterboxd. Plugging our individual Letterboxd.
I was gonna say that is our show. If you want to tell us your thoughts, we'll probably set up an email. I haven't done that yet. Maybe even an Instagram, who knows. If you want to find us on social media, on Letterboxd, I'm at Ryan Loves Film,
and I am at Annie Morell. My name will be spelled somewhere for you, I'm sure.
If I figure out how to do show notes, I'll throw it in there. All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in a week with Lynne Ramsay's next film. Bye-bye.